we start? Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mr.
I hope
Tende.
you're all good.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes, I am.
Now, today I'm going to be talking about my research in behavior and dealing with challenges in the creative media. That's where I'm doing my placement, and I'm teaching. I'm teaching filmmaking for to students. So I'm gonna start my introduction.
Okay.
Okay, background. Okay, my trials will take place on in New City, Red Bridge, and that's where I'll be doing my trials. That's where I was doing my trials, and it's a very good place to work in, and the environment I mean, the students that come to the college, they come from a poor family, and I specialize in digital film and post production. That's what I'm teaching my students because I've got experience in that from university. Okay, my learners, and my research. Okay, my research is going to be on the group I'm teaching and the 18 students in my class, and they all got different learning levels, but then the problem is they have they can't stay long for, like, if you're showing them something, they start doing something else. So the attention span is really low. So, and then not just that, I also got dyslexic students, and I also got Sprague syndrome. People with students are suffering with that, and ADHD and autism. So yeah, and then this kid's on a special. It's called the educational healthcare plan. That's what they're on. So they always get support from the teachers, from the teacher that's appointed to them. And so when they get marked, they don't get penalized for their spelling mistakes or their or when it comes to submitting work late. They're given extra time. And there are some students out there in my class. I mean, they have a traits of special educational needs, but they go there pretending like they don't need it, but you can tell they need it. And my big idea is the big idea in my PCK, and which I was struggling to figure out what that is. Alright. Okay. I'm teaching them how to use Adobe Premiere Pro and how to edit the films and how to capture good sound and everything. That they enjoy doing that the most. They don't like writing. They don't like theory. They don't like presentations like this presentation that I'm doing. They don't like that. They wanna hands-on. That's what they prefer doing. And let's see. Oops. And also I'm teaching them how to organize that project, and also that they do have basic skills, basic IT skills. And I'm teaching them also how to render their films. When they're finished editing, they can share it on YouTube or upload on Wix. And then this is where they do like a diary about what they did and how they did it and what challenges they came across. Then So the problem I was having with my students, they're losing focus in my class, especially when I'm presenting a presentation. They lose focus, and so it's not even just me. Other teachers as well. They're trying to figure out how can we get their attention. What can we do? But then I also came up with an idea. I thought maybe if we can make the presentation short and show them some videos, and then they'll get it, and all they have to do is to use their creativity, and also less using a lot of numbers, maths, because it will take their creativity side. So it's best to focus on the creativity, but also add a bit of maths, a little bit, and more English for the people that struggle to speak, to communicate. Okay, and I'm gonna talk about my past reflections. A long time ago, when I started teaching my class, I was given a class, but I didn't have the confidence to point out the behavior, and I couldn't tell them that this is stop what you're doing because I was really afraid. I had to run out around the class, look for a security guard. Where's the security guard? They're probably having their tea somewhere else. It was really hard for me. So I told my teacher that this is the problems I'm having, and my mentor was like, listen, you need to you're the leader in the class. If you're scared of them, they're gonna take advantage of you. So I was also looking at how they teach, how they handle behavior, and trying to figure out my own style, how I can approach it properly, not in a harsh way, but in a nice, polite way. But sometimes if you're too nice, very nice, you are basically you're a headless chicken. So and also I get like constructive feedback from my teachers to tell me that this is what you need to do it, and also you need to know their names. That's the most important things. You need to know their names, and that's how you build a rapport with them. So that didn't actually come into my mind because I'm not very good at remembering names. So what I had to do, I had to ask them to write their names down and put it on the table. They had to do that for 4 months, just for me to remember their names. Then the reason why I did this research is because I wanted to know how to deal with behavior. But while I was doing my research, I was also trying. Every time when I was teaching, when I was conducting my class, I was trying it to see how if I do this, how's it gonna be like? And then if I see that strategy is not working, I'll try something else different. But behavior always changes every day, so there's no way you can actually try and change it or try and stop it. It always continues. So that's the reason why I have to do this research and find out like how to handle it, but not to try and stop it, not to try and try and stop, make it not go further. And the solution, I have to model the right behavior, and this way, I had to join the group because we gave them a subject to do, like they have to watch their favorite film and try and get a short scene from that film and do a copycat, try and do a replicate. So we gave them that, so they all picked their favorite films, and they did that. But we put them in different groups because sometimes sometimes when you put them in a group, because when you're working in the film industry, you're working in a group. You can't make a film by yourself. You have to work with people. That's how it is. So that's the reason why I put them in that group. But then I wanted to mix them up, but it didn't work. I wanted to mix them up with the higher learners, but they didn't want to mix up because the group was very difficult, and the higher learners wanted to be on their own group. They didn't want to be part of the lower learners because they thought maybe. So I also looked at I also gave them structure and direction in how to produce the work they've chose to produce, and showing them how to get like angles, you know, by demonstrating. But me taking also, because I'm part of the group, I'm in the group. I wasn't just doing one group, I was doing like 4 groups all by myself. So I was just running around and checking up on everyone else, and they did enjoy it. And yeah, they enjoyed it. And sometimes you'd be like, hey Bruce, have you found a good angle for this shot? And Bruce would be like, oh sir, I don't think this is the same angle. What do you think? And I look at the shot and be like, what's missing? What's going on there? What did you do wrong? And then be like, oh, I think I'm missing, I should move the camera a bit this way, or I should do a zoom in a bit. So yeah, now you know what it is. Always think about the shot before you film. You should think about it first. And he goes like, okay. And then Aliyah is always like, oh sir, my shot came out wrong. They're all out of focus. Aliyah, don't be afraid of making a mistake. We're all here to learn. And then she carries on doing the work. And I also help them and explain to them that it's good to work as a team. It doesn't matter if you rule. I mean, if the person agrees with you on something else, but always find ways to agree, or play a game like as it tells. That's okay, fine, you want, let's do it away. It's best that way sometimes. Yeah. And so my results, it worked for me by it worked for me because it increased levels of concentration and communication. Because there were some students that were really quiet. They couldn't even say anything. So I was telling them that, you know, when you're working as a director, you need to speak to your actors. You have to speak to your actors, your models, whatever. Tell them what you're looking for so that you can get results. They didn't know how to do it properly. Then I said, you need to know their names, you need to know the names of your actor, and then talk to them. And also, don't be too serious. Joke with them as well. So I was teaching them how to communicate. I want to get to my thing. So these are my results. When I put them in a group, some said 75% of some other groups, they said yeah, they were okay and going on a different group, and some, the higher learners, that's 25%. They said no, they don't want to separate. They rather work because they know each other. They're friends. They've been friends for a very long time, so they rather work together. So I didn't want to argue with that. And conclusion, so yeah, joining the individual groups helped me to build a rapport with my students as well, and I got to know them very well, and they enjoyed my class. And as you can see on that picture, I'm talking to them, I'm having a conversation with them, and they're telling me how they felt. They're explaining to me they rather do the practical than doing the writing and the theory. So this really helped, and I also showed a lot of respect. As you can see, the way I'm standing, I'm actually listening to them. That's the most important thing. Listen to what they are saying, and also take that on board and try and change the way you're gonna teach them. So that's what I was doing. And oops, there's something in that. I also asked them questions and to see if they know what I've taught them. And you know what? A lot of them, they know a lot because they watch a lot of films and they're asking so many questions. They're asking me difficult questions. I'll say, how do I make a Star Trek movie? I want to try and make this. So that's another level. You're going to need a green screen, you're going to need this, you're going to need this. And they're learning, and they go out there, they do their own research, and then they bring it to me. They say, I want to learn how to do this. And then I sit down with them and explain to them, if you want to do this, you do it like this, get a green screen, and I'll show you in After Effects how to do it. So they're getting something. How much time do I have?
You've still got another 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay. 3 minutes. Okay, I'll go to my references. So these are my references. There's another page. I can't go to another page with that.
I love that picture.
Yeah, I looked at what's the other guy's name again?
Vygotsky? Skinner?
The lenses, the 4 lenses.
Brookfield.
Yeah, I liked it because when you're learning, you have to actually see how other people do stuff. And some people learn by watching, and some people learn by listening. So I prefer watching when it comes to learning. I prefer watching because I'm more visual. So that's why I chose that, the Brookfield. Yeah.
Autobiographical lens. Good.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Energy. Good stuff. Well done so well. And you battled well there, sorry. Boys, you did really well to carry on.
I mean, colourful, very nice.
Yeah.
We need to learn from you on this.
Yeah, I need to learn Presley.
Oh, definitely, I will.
Yeah.
Fantastic kind of, the whole way that it was put together. It was so visual, wasn't it? And you can see that you obviously have used your autobiographical lens when putting your presentation together, because you said you like learning visually, don't you? You could see that. So has anyone got any questions for Tendo?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm interested, how did you teach them how to use the, is it Adobe?
Adobe Premiere.
Yeah. What were the methods that you used? Was it interactive, collaborative learning? Was it online? How did you show them how to
Alright,
use it?
I would demonstrate how to use Premiere Pro and also show them videos, like tutorials. Yeah, and also sometimes I'll make my own tutorials so that, because some of them are like, oh sir, I don't understand this guy, so he's got American accent. How can I don't understand him. I prefer, is there a British version? So I'm like, okay, I'll make you one, my accent. And then what do you think? Oh, fine.
Good one, I like that. Did they like that version?
Yes, yeah, they like my version. Yeah, some criticized, some liked it, yeah.
Okay, Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Ange.
So at the end you were talking about how you were able to sort of, you got involved with the groups and that helped with the behaviour, and you stated that obviously you were having an issue with the higher level learners not wanting to mix groups. Was it 25% you said didn't want to mix groups?
25%, yeah.
So obviously with controlling behaviour you have to sort of choose and pick your battles, don't you? So do you think were there any other sort of strategies or ideas you have to eventually get to the end goal where everyone will be okay with mixing? Or do you think you'll be able to, eventually overcome that, and how would you do that?
To be honest with you, I would overcome that by obviously I can't explain to them we can explain to them why we're separating, why this is happening. I can do that. But there's always a problem because they know each other. They've been together for 4 years, and for 2 years they're friends, they're best friends, so you can't separate that. So, and these people, their behavior is terrible, and you don't want to get into an argument with that. So if something like that happening, there's no way you can actually try and stop it. Just let them, as long as they're there to learn, they're in college, let them do it.
I think just following on this one, I'll allow you, but I just want to follow on Angie's. Yeah, I think that is quite critical in what Angie is saying, because you realize that you are the teacher and you want them to go out there because they're not going out with their friends that they are used to. They're going to be working in an environment which is real. So how would they do that? And I think that maybe in as part of the reflection that you are doing, it could be something that you can take on and see maybe this is not how you narrowed your experiment, the research, but it's something that I think you can't even address. It is possible to do it. In fact, let me allow her to say it because I will bring it in. Yeah.
All right.
Go on, Hannah.
Thanks, okay. I'm just interested today, from the beginning where you were running out to get the security guard to the actual place where you were working alongside in those particular groups. How do you, or what learning curve did you do, or how did you establish from that fear to such confidence that you were working with those groups that, you've been mindful that the previous group you had run away from? Okay, so your own learning journey, how did you establish, or how did you get enough confidence, to build your confidence to do that?
All right. My mentor kept pushing me. She kept throwing me into the deep end. Like, listen, you're not gonna go anywhere if you're scared. So you have to go there and teach. So I was covering a lot of lessons. So doing that a lot of times, that's how it boosted my confidence.
Practice makes
Practice makes perfect. Because I remember when I was back in high school, I joined a swimming. They forced me to join a swimming team. I was really afraid of water because I thought there was something inside the water that would pull me down and I would drown and I would die. But my coach actually took me and pushed me into the water.
Oh,
Cruel.
And then I had to swim all the way from the deep end to the shallow. And then I got off, I was like, what? How did I do it? Because that fear
Drove you.
Exactly. Yeah. And actually, this group are a bit of a pool of sharks, I would say. There are actually some in that group that would eat you alive.
They would just, they would eat you alive. So it's not an easy group. Yeah, it's a difficult
Not
group.
at all, very difficult group.
And it's difficult to allow students to what the groups that they didn't want to work with the lower level.
Yeah,
It's quite challenging.
it is challenging because I tried doing that, and then this guy was like, "You ain't gonna split me up. I'm working with these guys." So I'm like, "Oh, but I'm asking you to work with these guys. Can you please do that?" He didn't want to do it.
I had a similar experience. It's just remembered that with ESOL learners, they were adults, and I asked them to work together, this gentleman, and he was like, no, and there had to be in threes, so it wouldn't make sense otherwise. And then he joined them, but then he came after the lesson and said, you bullied me. I did not want to work with them, and you forced me. And that's why I wanted to ask the same question, but then I thought, oh, that's a tricky one, especially with adults.
Yeah.
So I was like, it was just in threes, that's how it is,
Yeah.
I'd like to have a discussion. It was 2 ladies and 1 gentleman. I said, form groups please and discuss about this. And then he was just reluctant. He came to me and he said, I felt bullied. And I was like, oh, okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So it can be quite challenging. And
did it get resolved in the end?
yes,
was he
was the
willing
best
to work
actually.
with others?
He was
Right.
quite clever guy, and he was telling me, I've got a master's and I'm an engineer and whatever, you can't force me to do that. He was sort of took it in the wrong
So it
way.
wasn't anything sort of like it was his beliefs or he
Or
just
wasn't
didn't
it,
like the people,
cultural
but it was
thing?
sort of...
I think what I
I
feel
just
like,
felt really sad as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
was not my intention.
No.
So
Exactly,
what
yeah.
Tunde did, you sort of like put it aside. You did not argue with them,
Yes.
and that's good. You were not confrontational. But I still wonder whether when someone is reluctant to work in groups, how do you actually do that? It's very
Actually, it's one of my
tricky.
questions was to ask
Oh.
people how have they managed it? When people do
I think
refuse,
you
and
need to have that chemistry.
you had that
rapport.
individual conversation with the person, didn't
I
you?
did,
Take
yeah,
them to
and
one
I
side.
apologised. I was like, it was not my
Yeah.
intention to bully you, and that's not what and of course I spoke to my manager about it because that was a critical incident. That person felt offended, but then we resolved it.
Yeah.
It's
But I
human.
feel like, okay, sometimes, I recently had that last week. Sometimes you don't, your intention is not like that, but the learner. Sometimes, okay, sorry, but I sometimes have to ignore, because if you take it more further, they take it into it.
Yeah.
So it's like, then,
Like feeding it,
then what I did is like, next time, you have to take care of that person much, and then, I've seen that the praising, after that, they bring them up.
There's a saying that do not play with fire if you can control the flames.
Good
So
one.
the only way to do this is to let them work together, but as long as they're there to do their work, as long as they're working, as long as you check in on them, it's best.
Sometimes you
That's
have
the
to build
best.
a relation with
Yeah.
them,
Exactly, that's what I
this
think.
particular
Build that rapport.
person, and then
Yes.
later you
Yeah.
can, make them understand later with that thing.
Oh.
One of the things that I used to do was, when taking on a new group, I would, do the sort of, obviously not with people of like yourselves, but with younger students perhaps of this age, was, this is my classroom, these are my expectations. And you will be working in groups, but you'll be working in different groups all the time. One week it will be this group, one week it will be that. I will choose some weeks, you can choose other weeks, and that's the way we do things. And then I used to call them like really stupid group names. Like this week we're in our fluffy dog groups, and it would be like Flopsy would be, instead of group 1 it would say Flopsy, and it would have a picture of a silly little fluffy dog, and number 2 would be Rolo or something, and they'd all have sort of, and then another week I'd say, right, this week we're working in our chocolate bar groups, you're the Mars bar group, you're the Snickers group, you're the Bouncy group, and every week it was something kind of a little bit weird. So in the end they didn't see it as being like they'd been deliberately put together. It was so random, and everyone worked with everyone, that they just accepted. And in the end, students used to, and I always had them on the board right at the beginning of the lesson, so the students would come in and automatically look to see, oh, I'm in the Flopsy Dog, group this week, and then they'd look on the table and it would say Flopsy Dog, and they'd go and sit in that space because they knew that was the group they were going to be in that week, but it would be different next week. So, that's, it might work, it might not. But yeah, it did take time, and one of the reasons I did it was because I was fed up with students saying, oh, I don't want to work with them, and why do I have to? And so yeah, it was because this is my classroom and it's my rules, and that's the way we do it here.
think if you can establish that in the
Yeah.
beginning, as you
Yeah.
said, like in the
Yeah.
induction, for example,
Yeah,
so they know what your expectations are, I think that makes it easier.
yeah.
Like, these are the rules, you know, these
Yeah.
are the expectations.
Yeah, like the phone thing. I mean, I've seen that done a lot in ESOL where people, you know, have this box and they say, right, phone's in here. You know, and everyone just trudges over and phone in the box
Yeah.
because they know that's what they have to do. And it saves you then every lesson saying, can you just put your phone away, please? Can you just do this? You know, and I, when the first time I saw that being done in ESOL, I thought, oh, I bet none of these students will hand their phones in. And they all did. They were just marched over there, bump, you know, because they knew that was the expectation, which doesn't necessarily, I know, help you now, but in the future, moving forward, you know, if you can establish that at the beginning, then that, I'm sure, would help.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think I like the way you reflected on your own internal fears to kind of look at the young people that you are teaching. They don't like reading. If you doing any lengthy kind of lecture, then they switch on. So that for me was quite interesting. And this picture tells it all. That when the books are, I mean, it's a scary kind of stuff.
It is, yeah.
Now, what I'm looking at is how would you even, you see, if you are looking at it from the theory to practice, then it's scary. But can you work it from practice to theory? Because at the end of the day, you cannot say, okay, I know how to film, but you need to read something.
You need to read
You
something.
need to look at the model. You need to look at the gadget. So how can they overcome
This
that
is
kind
when
of
you try and show them case studies. I mean, you do case studies like showing them like videos of how they used to make films and how they used to edit films and how so they understand where it came from. By watching, they understand. But some, they don't want to like read the book. Oh man, days. Why? It's long. Because some of them are dyslexic, you know, and then they're going to be asking you, say, what does this mean? And do you have the time to explain everything when you got the whole class to talk?
Now, what I'm saying is, instead of working from theory to practice, work from practice to theory. Can you try that? You see, so they are working, they are doing this thing. Now you did one thing. You said, how did you manage to get it? Did you put it at an angle? And that is something that,
That's inductive, isn't it?
Exactly.
You use the examples to reach the general, instead of giving them the theory and saying, okay, what are some examples of this? It's like giving them
the answer first.
Here's the answer. What's the question? Type of thing.
It's discovery.
No, I haven't tried what you just said, but I'm gonna try it.
But I see that is your strength.
Yeah.
That your strength is the practice, the hands-on. See, that is you yourself, the way you learn.
Yeah.
So if you have got a student in that, I think they are the best fit for you.
Because if you're teaching films, right? Because I've looked at like, you know, some schools in UK and like film schools. Because I've been on one, they actually focus on practical. They want you to know how to make films, and then obviously there's one that's gonna sit down and write the script, and you're telling the guy, this is how I want the story to be like, and this person's writing because they prefer writing. They don't like to be on the camera. They don't want to do this. They prefer writing. That's what they want. So yeah, the film industry is more hands-on and less writing.
But then, having said that though, aren't you kind of preparing your students for the wider spectrum of the film industry if you were to look at not just the practical side? Because like you're saying right now, there's a person that will then be the script writer that will write the storyline, do you understand? So as much as yes, you want to focus on the practical because that's a larger part of it, there's still the kind of written context that you may have to look at just to give them the actual whole picture.
Yeah, you're right.
It's difficult when you're dealing with educational needs. It's just 10 times harder.
Yeah, there's one student in my class. He twitched. What do you call it? Yeah, a lot. So at first I didn't understand. I was like, oh, sorry, a tick. Yeah. So I thought I was scaring him. But I asked the teacher, my mentor, do you know what? I have an issue here. There's a student that always, when I'm around him, what's going on with that? Oh, don't worry, it's not your problem. He's got it.
Or Tourette.
Yeah, he's got that. So I thought I was scaring him because the way I was approaching him. But sometimes when he's filming, I'll go behind him, so I'll be like, is everything okay? He goes like, so so I'm like, oh, did I?
But that's why it's so important to have that group profile, you know, the information, the knowledge about your group. And sometimes I think, you know, when you're working with a mentor and your mentors are really busy and they've forgotten to give you that, and then you suddenly think, oh wow, is this my fault? And then you discover it's not your fault, it's something that, but something you need to be aware of. Actually, can I ask a question? You mentioned Wix, which I think I've heard of, WIX, isn't it? What is it and how do you use it to support learning?
Oh, that's a good question. Wow. Is this the thing for him for last week? Alright, okay.
Relax.
Alright.
It's not a thing for
So
that.
can you repeat that question?
So tell us first of all, what is Wix?
Alright, Wix is it's a website where you can design your own website, like a portfolio.
It's like WordPress.
Sorry?
Is it like WordPress?
Yeah, you can design a blog if you want, or website. You can do blogging, but for now, they're doing blogging. They're writing what you call it, a diary.
Yes.
Of the process. I mean, they're writing a diary of how they're making their films and how they're, the challenges. They're writing the challenges and weaknesses. No, strengths and weaknesses, and then the challenges they're having.
Sounds a bit like your PDJ.
Yeah, that's what
maybe
it is.
We should do, maybe I should have a look at that then for your PDJs, for students' PDJs in future. Maybe it would be good
Wix,
to blog them using something like Wix.
Wix.
Sounds really
interesting. I hope I explained it well.
You did, and you told me how you use it to support learning as well.
Yeah.
That did sound a bit interviewy, didn't it? You use this, Mr. Chura.
Do they call you Sir in Nocturne?
They call me Sir. Some call me Tendai.
Oh, okay.
And some just say they prefer Sir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I told them, guys, you can call me Tendai, you can call me Sir, but if it's up to you. But some forget names. Remember, you got students that are dyslexic and students that are they can't remember names, like me myself. So give them that option, like you can call me Sir or yourself Mrs. or whatever, in case they forget names.
One thing I've noticed in ESO a lot, they say teacher. Teacher, which is
Oh,
really interesting. No, I don't. I'm not kidding.
You know the thing I mentioned with the names, to put them on the desk. On the very first lesson, I tell my students to put their names on the desk rather than remembering. You know, for example, if there is a class of 20, 25, you know, it's really weird. You want to, you know, interact everyone, and you say, "Oh, excuse me, what's your name?" Then you ask a question. It really looks weird. So when they have their names, you know, on the desk, you straight away read their name, and you know, Iris, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, teacher, remember my names."
Yeah.
And it feels like very. No, it really helps.
It really does, and it's one of the advantages of online teaching is that you've got everybody's photograph, if you like, everybody, you can see everybody and their name.
But kids, even in that one, you know, you can't see all of them at the same time when you share your screen.
That's true, yeah.
But you know, one of the things I saw with Zoom, you know, like once Emily came to observe me, and then I thought Emily said, "I'm going to leave, like, you know, at this time." And then I didn't realize she left. You don't know that the person left. You know, some of the websites.
Oh, right,
You can't realize the person has left.
I've had that problem in online teaching
that's
myself.
happened with the learners as well. Like, you know, in Meet, Google Meet.
Yes.
You know, like when you were doing the lessons with us, once Imran was, remember, once Imran was even holding like we were looking, Imran gonna ask, you know, because Imran is like that, until you don't tell him to say the question, he won't ask.
That's
I've seen him many times.
Yeah.
And then, you know, later, Eve said that, okay, Imran is asking a question.
That's it. Or people type something in the chat and you can't see the chat until you're out of screen share.
This is not teacher's fault, but you know, Google Meet is like that. When you share your screen, you can't see your learners.
There's an option, I don't know if it's on Zoom,
On Zoom there
Someone's
is.
like raising
Oh, raise your
Yeah.
hand
And-
button.
and
Yes,
Meet.
yes.
Yeah, and
Do it on Meet.
yeah.
But not all learners,
Yeah,
they give you the
it's
hand.
like-
They just keep like this, or maybe they say the name,
They
then you
can.
have to realize whose voice is that,
Yeah.
and then you have to recognize their name
That's
straight
it.
away. I
Yeah.
mean, many things at the same time you have to deal with.
Yeah, that's it. It is, isn't it? It's
Yes.
learning a whole new skill set of teaching online.
Yeah.
Tanda, how did you find it using Prezi for this?
Yeah.
It took me a week to learn it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then if you go on the tutorials on YouTube, they're in Italian, basically
Oh.
Italian
Oh, is
software.
it?
Whatever.
Oh,
Yeah.
Italian,
Yeah.
right.
So you find a lot of Italian, only a few English in English. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have no choice. You just have to listen to the Italian guy talking and then just
Yeah.
follow along. That's what I did.
It's good that you taught yourself how to do it because you know
Yeah.
so much of what we do now
Yeah.
as teachers is that, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like, right. Can you remember back in March when we all suddenly had to start teaching online? It's all of a sudden you do it on Zoom, but what's that? You know, what's Meet? I've never heard of that. You know, what's Teams? This is all new to me, and there's no sort of training for it, is it? You just like have to know, or you have to find out, and that's one of the skills, isn't it, of reflective practice and developing yourself as a teacher. So you've given us some really good examples of how you've done that, Tende. I thought it was really, really good. So well done. You had a very difficult class there to deal with, and you covered all the different things that you need to cover for your Module 4 assignment. You had your context, your big ideas, you explained your PCK. I like your photographs in there as evidence. You know, it's always good to see something real, isn't it? You know, you explained what the problem was. You reflected on your practice. I suppose one thing to ask is, with Brookfield and his lenses, so that's, you know, your own lens, the autobiographical, the student lens, the colleague lens, and the literature lens. Which did you find most useful when you were reflecting? Which of those 4 lenses?
The first one.
The autobiographical
Yes.
self. Yeah. Yeah. Does everyone else find that? What do you find? Do you find thinking about your own, you know, your own experiences helps and shapes how you teach? Yeah.
In our research, you mean, Kate?
Yeah, or just in general. In general, yeah. Do you find that reflecting on yourself and how you learnt helps you to teach?
I
I
find,
feel, yeah.
Go on,
I
Natty.
find that it's the autobiographical
Yeah,
biography.
that's it.
Whatever the word is right now. That one. And like, you know, when you're looking at your colleagues or
Yeah,
potentially observing you and you're potentially observing them, I find it's
Yeah.
those two
yeah.
that I kind of
Drawn
steer
to.
towards, yeah.
Yeah,
Because that kind of helps me, because then I then reflect, obviously, which is a
I
different one.
agree.
Reflect on that.
yeah.
to then-
It's always useful to see what the literature says, you know, isn't it? It's always useful to, you know, and if you're stuck on something, I remember Michael said to me once when we used to sit opposite each other at a desk, and I was working on something and I suddenly started picking up books and sort of, you know, flicking through, and it was things like Jeff Petty and Hillier and Gregson, you know, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, you know, I'm trying to write this report, and I'm just thinking." He said, "That's great. I love the way you use the literature to shape your thinking when you're stuck on something." And I
It's the
thought,
most important thing. I
that's
think.
yeah,
It is the most important thing.
yeah,
You can't always reflect, you know, like the autobiographical thing.
yeah.
Sometimes you don't know, you don't realise what you're doing wrong.
No,
So, you know, I think it's the colleague's sort of perspective plus the theory.
yeah,
To me, it's just theory.
yeah.
Really.
As a manager over the years as well in teaching and education, I use the autobiographical lens all the time there, because I think, how do I like being managed, you know, and when I've had performance management interviews or things like that in the past, and I've thought, you know, that was really horrible the way he dealt with that, or you know, when somebody gives you feedback after a lesson and you think to yourself, yeah, that didn't feel so great. So then you learn by thinking, well, I didn't like that, so I'm going to try it this way. You know, it doesn't always work, but yeah, you do, I think, learn a lot that way. Thank you, Tende. Any more questions actually before we stop? Any more questions? No? No. Well done.